There's a place where magic lives, a place where fairies say goodnight and dance in the moonlight. The story I'm about to tell you is based on fears of unknown, but as well on love and understanding, starting a new adventure of a lifetime. By doing my first long-distance hike, I've opened doors and invited adventure into the life in a new, different form and shape. Only a year later, I met my partner Will, and only within a month we've been together, we have decided to put our relationship into a test and go on our first together long-distance hike, a place I wished I could continue to after West Highland Way. While I was getting ready for West Highland Way, I came across with connecting long-distance hike Great Glen Way. I remember when I was finishing West Highland Way thinking how great it would be to continue, and I made a promise to myself, make this hike reality next year. Our start was not the greatest one. I felt quite ill with cold and I was fairly weak. My body was doppler resistant, assuring me deep inside once we reach the forest I will feel okay. So we've set on the journey, firstly through Inverness, enjoying the sights and children playground, slowly climbing into the forest.
It's the falls.
As we reached the forest, we both felt rejuvenated as the beauty of the nature energized us. Checking map time to time, walking while talking and creating fantasy stories, we slowly reached the road. At this point we felt quite tired.
Oh, good.
And 2 miles walking on the concrete felt never ending. As soon we entered forest path again, we've started looking for possible camping place.
So what is it here?
A little mushroom playground.
Until we found a mushroom playground, as Will called it, and we settled for the night somewhere in between Inverness and Drumnadrochit. Next day morning, we were determined to start really cover some distance before lunch. But as it is sometimes, you plan, but the path has different plans for you. We walked only a few kilometers and we ended up having early lunch, coffee served in a beautiful set, and homemade cake and delicious soup. Just to have a quick look, we went to see this eccentric cafe mentioned in the book about Great Glen Way. It was definitely our highlight of the day, sitting in nature around a wooden table, sharing bits of a cake with the wildlife. Our next stop later was to take care of our feet with zinc plaster. If you watched my first long distance hike, you know what a struggle blisters can be, and after that hike I've learned about this magic. We've started seeing Loch Ness, on which side we stay for a couple of days. I'm sure you've heard of Nessie, the Loch Ness monster. First time mentioned by a follower of St. Columba in 565 AD, who swam through the loch to get a boat for his master, when a monster rose from the loch. It caused barely a ripple of concern throughout following centuries until well-known black and white photo resurrected Loch Ness monster again in 1934. Stay with me on the journey and later we revisit Nessie again.
What did you do?
Have a shower.
Oh,
Clean.
and I'm so dirty.
So clean, I can see. Oh, careful.
We refreshed ourselves and the forest we walked through was like a true fairy tale. Mossy ground and the mushrooms. I've never seen these big mushrooms in my life. There was just so many of them. Slowly we reached new views of Loch Ness and Urquhart Castle in the background. We didn't have a time to visit castle this time, but it's certainly a place I'd love to see one day. We camped in Drumnadrochit that night in a spacious green camping site. where they gave us free leftover camping gas as we were running out. Next morning, with the good omens on the sky, we set on a possible, most difficult and same time one of the most beautiful days of the whole journey. As soon we left Drumnadrochid, it started raining fairly heavily and most of the path led us up the hill. But it was all worth it. We reached this magical forest, and when the sunlight appeared through the trees, we knew the worst is behind us. Although we were tired, we've chosen upper path and we were rewarded with amazing views over Loch Ness. Did you know that there was a man who spent 24 years by the loch with his van to observe the lake and possibly catch the Loch Ness monster? I'm sure he's got a lot of stories to tell, but unfortunately discovery of the monster is not one of them, and ultimately he gave up on Nessie. Sun started slowly setting and we had to speed up to get down and find some camping spot. We made it just in time, choosing a grassy spot by the path. Midges visited us there as well, and we tried to dry our wet clothes overnight, but was mostly unsuccessful. Watching a bat flying above us, we settled for the night as it got quickly darker. It's been a while we had a shower, so refreshing my feet in the close by stream felt energizing. Breakfast, pack up, and we set on the next interesting stretch of the path.
Hello.
The rain again reached us in the most open space possible, but same time created dramatic sceneries over vast views of Loch Ness.
How are you?
Wet. Cold hands. Not a great cycle.
Another possibly more astonishing fact about Loch Ness than Nessie is that the volume of water in the loch exceeds that of all the lakes and reservoirs in England and Wales.
That's us walking in the rain. It's not fun. Now we're going to the sun. All the way to the sun.
We started descending to Fort Augustus, saying goodbye to Loch Ness and its monster and finding new home for the night. We treated ourselves and went to have a proper dinner in Fort Augustus, going to sleep unaware of what's to come next day. In the morning, we've resupplied in Fort Augustus and got to talking to two girls from England who informed us that there is a storm coming with high winds resulting in yellow warning. They were questioning if to continue or take day of rest, as the next stretch didn't offer possibilities for any sheltered camping. A little bit unsure, we set on the journey by the canal, trying to get to next stop as soon as possible, in hopes of avoiding the high winds. We started to be a bit worried when diversion sent us uphill into the forested or previously forested area, which we did not expect to go through, as we were hoping camping by the loch. We ended up finding a spot in a small clearing in between trees on the lower part of the hill, hoping gust winds won't influence trees here too much. No fallen trees around, no dead trees, which could be a possible danger. We settled for the night. It was not the most peaceful night, but hearing deer somewhere fairly close by during the night gave us a sense of security. I was certainly glad the night was over and we woke up fairly early to make breakfast. We left the place as we have found it, grateful to forest spirits protecting us during the night. We set on another day of hiking, resupplying in a petrol station. As we walked, we've seen these well-stocked up honesty box, so there's always a possibility to supply as you walk. The path led us quite a bit on the concrete through villages until we were again diverted into the woods away from the loch. At this point we should be passing Loch Lochy, leaving behind Loch Oich, but the first path was as well beautiful. Passing hikers recommended us a sheltered place by the loch, which was already occupied when we arrived, but there were quite a few more places for building a tent by the loch. We finally had some quiet, relaxed time before bed, taking care for new ticks in the edition of 12, which I had throughout the whole trip. We had a funny encounter here overnight. I woke up a few times to a scratching sound to a mouse outside of our tent. As expected, we found some mice poo next day morning on our backpacks with some yellow foamy fabric spread around. We got afraid that Mrs. Mouse may be bit through our backpacks, but they were all fine. Without finding out what was the fabric from, we continued our packing until came time to wash our dishes and we couldn't find our sponge. Turns out Mrs. Mouse stole our whole sponge to possibly make her bed for winter, as it was nowhere to be found. We hope it made her cozy. We enjoyed the beauty around, tried our best with jumping stone frogs before we packed up and continued the journey. Our old friend Rain came visit us again. At this point we got quite used to it, as this was certainly not one of the driest journeys in the mountains. As it usually is on these hikes, there is always something to lift up your mood, and it was no different for us. We started feeling the weight of getting closer to the last day, which will mean end of the adventure, and so we just wanted to enjoy last days to its fullest. And it was as if the path was saying goodbye to us back. But the journey is not at its end yet, and we still have quite a while to go, together exploring little miracles path left for us as we walked past Loch Lochy. Did you know Loch Lochy has its monster as well, called Lizzie? No doubt related to Nessie. Without any monsters paying us a visit on this journey, we reached last banks of Loch Lochy and Garlichy Lochs, where is a grass stretch to pitch our tent. We got to have a shower after quite a while reaching the end of the journey. You can obtain key for shower facilities in advance from Caledonian Canal office. Tomorrow is our last day. We're leaving Great Glen behind us, home to Clancameron, and by Caledonian Canal walking towards Fort William. The lochs are main attraction of this stretch of the journey, as passing cruise boats. We reach Neptune's Staircase, which is a stretch of tightly packed series of 8 canal locks. It's definitely interesting to observe. It takes about 90 minutes or even longer for a boat to actually get through the staircase. As Mouse ate through Will's mac and cheese night before last one, we were a bit short on supplies. Apple Tree was truly universe taking care of us. We're almost there. Still long zigzagging roads to Fort William, taking break while watching shanty game, typically in the area and from look of it quite cool as well. We made it to Fort William. We had to camp in close by woods where we had our symbolic end of the journey, looking over Glen in the distance. We made it, survived together 24/7 through ups and downs as the journey unfolded in front of us.
Anything to say?
Had a great time. Hi.
So we're done.
Next day morning, we treated ourselves to breakfast and we stopped by the official end of the journey.